Greetings, guys. Welcome back to my channel. Good morning. For those of you that are new here, I am a professional intuitive empath, and today I want to talk about trusting your gut. Don't let them throw you off. Don't let them throw your rhythm off. Hit your stride. Recently had the opportunity to be the officiant for a wedding. I've done many weddings in the last several years, but this wedding was particularly important for someone that I care about and love very much. When you're an officiant, which is one of the services that I provide under the umbrella of the work that I do as a professional intuitive empath and a guide, I take it seriously. I spend time working with a couple. We all hear about marriage counseling or couples counseling, and that's not necessarily what I do. I do couples readings. I do a few. And if I'm lucky, I get to work with a couple throughout the span of a year before we get to the actual marriage part, if they have that much of a heads up that that's something that they want to do. And with this couple, it was no different. I got to work with them and work through some of the issues that came up, as all issues will come up in marriages. And I got to work with issues that were specially designed. Empath, do you ever notice that we have gone through horrible lessons in life that specifically get us to be able to be in a position of counseling or helping someone else? And that's what all those lessons are about. That's what builds and increases our testimony. So I had the ability and the opportunity to do that thing. The day finally arrived. I flew out of the country. I have some videos here of me recording being out of the country to do this thing. And all of my family arrives with me that came in support, friends and family. Um, the proceeding begins. The bride gets walked down the aisle by her brother, who flew 29 and a half hours from Scotland, interrupted his studies abroad to walk down so that a piece of her father could be there. And it was beautiful. Father had crossed over, but he was in the bouquet, dangling at the bottom in a picture. It was a wonderful, incredible event, and it meant so much to me. But I had a moment that was a lesson, because there are always lessons in everything. That is just part of my history, and it's part of my future. When we sign up to be teachers or earth angels or practitioners, we will learn things. And I learned something about me and the people that I care about, and the level of influence that can be heaped on me, and what I am willing to do or not do, and how it's so important to trust the inner voice, the one that comes from inside of you. I often talk about our angels and ancestors, but our internal voice matters too. And I had worked with a couple, and they gave me artistic liberties to write something that felt special to merge their future and their destinies. And so I wrote. And because of everything happening, it was a destination wedding. I did not get to go over it with them prior to. We took some cliff notes and went over the things, and we merged several ceremonies, and then I infused what I knew about the couple, and I came out with what I thought would work. And it went well. Towards the end of me walking them through the ceremony and saying their vows, I noticed out of the corner of my eye to my right side that someone in the audience was encouraging me to speed up. Before the ceremony, it had rained. Not exactly a deluge, but definitely a downpour, and we had the ceremony outside on the beach. It was beautiful, with the sunlight right behind us at the perfect timing, drones overhead in the air, photographers there, acoustic guitars, lulling quiet sounds of love through the air, steel pan drums and stilt walkers and fire blowers by the end of the night. But in that moment, in that peaceful moment, just before twilight, everything was right. But it had begun to sprinkle as I was heading towards the end of the ceremony. Now, the whole time, I had been well paced. I have practiced public speaking in a myriad of ways, from radio shows to here to doing poetry slams and readings to writing and reading and reciting when I was a wee child in grade school and grammar school. So, speaking out loud with all of my magical things that I have going on, it's something that I do. And when I say magical things, meaning I have a speech impediment, I have a lisp. I went to speech therapy for many years. I have hearing loss and a disability. So I wouldn't necessarily be the first candidate for public speaking, but that's apparently what God has tapped me for. Sometimes we are chosen for a thing and directed, even if it makes sense to no one else. Message. So I was doing well with it, and I had practiced that. I know how to project my voice, and I know how to pace myself. But someone who I love very much was in the audience, and it caught me off guard because it began to sprinkle, and it wasn't even raining hard, but she began to do that hand motion that one would do to say, hurry up, you, meaning she didn't want it to start downpouring before I could get through the ceremony. I want you to think about that. Were it to downpour, people would have been agitated. Maybe they would have stood up. Maybe they would have put their programs over their head or their jackets. They were kind of somewhat prepared because it had rained prior to the ceremony, but God had cleared the skies. And my angels told me in my ear, it was almost like if I was on television, they said, stand by. I knew for a fact that it wasn't going to downpour. But I got panicked because I'm watching this group of 40, 50 people that have flown from all over the world and from out of the country to be there for this moment. And it wasn't about me, it was about this couple. But I had a responsibility to facilitate a thing and to make sure that I brought their marriage in with positive words and calm energy. But there was someone in the audience distracting me. She meant well. She meant well. She wanted me to hurry up because for her, that's what made sense in her brain. It was such a powerful lesson. I began to speed up, and then the rain began to slow down. And then I brought back down my metronome, my internal metronome. There's a reason that I was able to pace myself. It's because of a musical back history I have. When you practice reading music or playing it, one of the first things that will happen is your teacher will put a metronome in front of you, and it's this little thing that goes tick tock, tick tock. It doesn't say that, but essentially a finger on a clock goes back and forth, and you can set it beats per minute so that you can make sure that you are playing the music in the right timing. So I have an internal metronome because that's was such a huge part of my life for so many years. And I knew, even though I didn't set one that day, that I needed to keep myself pace and push away my fears of rain or getting it wrong or stumbling or being emotional. And guess what? All of those things happened. There was rain. There was emotions that came from me because I was so happy to be marrying these two beautiful humans. There was a dog that wasn't cooperating. That was a ring bearer. There was a lot of things going on. You have to plan when you're public speaking for anything to go wrong. But that one person who I gave a lot of cachet to, who I love very much, started waving her hand and encouraged me to rush. And for a second, I stepped outside of myself and I did. Even though my angels told me, it's fine, you're going to marry these kids, everything's going to go as planned. And when I slowed back down, everything went as planned. Not a grain of sand was out of place. Nobody even got up from their seats. There was no wetness on anybody's face. It was kind of a weird little miracle. And as I said, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss your bride. And they turned to kiss and face all of the loving faces that came to hold space for them in that beautiful moment. I knew my job was complete and it was done. But I'm a quarterbacker in my head, right? Monday morning quarterback. I knew that I was going to have to do the rerun. It wasn't about did I get it right? And it wasn't about the lovely compliments that I received the rest of the night from the wedding party. It was about that one moment where someone who I valued and who I love, who thought they meant well, was not trying to destroy me, but definitely trying to direct me, and it got me off track. She did not mean anything malicious. She just wanted me to hurry up. She wanted me to get it right. But because of her proximity to me relationally, I trusted her. And it gave me a little bit of a fright. I was like, oh God, am I going to get this wrong? Is it going to downpour? Am I not going to get them married in time? The adrenaline started pumping and I lost my stride. The whole time I was strident, with clouds in the background and the sun pouring through, but I knew that I had an assignment to do. And I was confident because I've done this before, because I've done it when things did not go well. I've done it when people have interrupted. I've done it when it's been a pure hell outbreak, and I still got through it. This was smaller, and this was more about understanding that there will always be people that think that there's a better way to do it, a thing, execute something, get into the heart of a matter of a situation. So what they're so no, so get into the heart of the matter of a situation. So what I learned on that beautiful vacation in that moment where I was fulfilling my occupation, fulfilling the purpose that I was here for, is not to let anybody get you off your stride, no matter how much you love them. I love the person, and they were family, who was actually kind of rushing me. It was the mother of the bride. And she had every right to be worried that it wasn't going to happen and it wasn't going to go through. But sometimes you know what your angels tell you to do, and it doesn't matter who that person is. You know how to carry on. It was such a powerful lesson. They said it wasn't right, it wasn't wrong. They said neither of you were right or wrong. They said in life you will be tested that way. Empath, earth angel, light worker, in life you will be tested that way with people that have opinions, that want to say what they want to say, and you kind of know what direction you're supposed to go without any kind of second guessing. You know what you know. And in that moment, I lost myself. And later, as we were talking at dinner, my mother said to me, "What happened at the end? You were doing so beautifully." My mother was there to see it. She said, "You were speaking so articulately, so clearly." And people came up to me all evening and they were complimenting my daughter and the work that you did. But there was a moment when you sped up. What happened, kid? So she said to me, and I knew what happened was that someone distracted me. Well meaning as it may have been, they thought that there was a better direction and they thought that I should take their direction. There will be people in your life like that, empath, that really mean you well, but they do not know about what your angels have told you. They do not know about the internal guidance you received. I was trusted with the responsibility. And because I took my eye off the prize for just a moment and got caught up in a moment, it was real, it was drizzling. We didn't know what was going to happen. It was a variable. We were outside. I almost, for a second, lost my full and complete stride. I got it back, but it was such a powerful lesson for me. So I want to teach you about that and what to do when someone tries to distract thee. If you know what the assignment is, recalibrate immediately. I saw her waving and distracting me. Sometimes people are put in your life to do that. Do you think that she wanted to ruin her daughter's wedding? No. In fact, what she was trying to do is make sure that it stayed intact. She was trying to make sure that we got to the end of it. But still, I had a hold of it, right? And I knew that God was guiding me. And I knew that we were going to make it to the end and we were going to see the light and all would be well. And I wasn't wrong. We got to the Kiss the Bride show and tell, and it was beautiful. When moments like that happen, and they will, you will be challenged. You'll be challenged when you think, I absolutely know exactly how to paint this my number. I know exactly what to do. I've done it before. I'm never going to be moved. You will get moved. You will get challenged. And I could have sped up the rest of that wedding and then kicked myself for years, thinking, oh my goodness, how could I have let her fears affect what I heard between my ears? And what that means is I knew what my angels had told me, that everything was going to be fine and they were going to live in a happy matrimony. And that I needed to keep calm and carry on and keep my pace and not lose my stride, no matter who was around me outside, no matter how they were waving their hand and how they wanted me off track. They didn't want me off track because they didn't want me to win. They wanted me off track because they weren't listening to what I was hearing. Sometimes it will be like that. Sometimes people around you that absolutely love you will not know the word you've been given. They will not understand your mission, and it will be up to you with steely resolve to hold your position. It was just about 20 seconds that I sped up. I have it recorded. I watched it back, and I could see almost when the Lord and the light and the peace and the angels shined on me bright and kind of came right back into my spirit. And they said, steady, steady. She didn't hear it. She doesn't hear us. She doesn't hear what we said to do. We gave this assignment to you. It reminds me of a show that I used to watch that I loved, and it was Top Chef. And it was the season with Carla. If any of you guys watched The Chew, she was one of the people on The Chew. She is a tall black woman named Carla, and she makes pastries, and she's an amazing chef, and she won. Got pretty close to winning her season one year, got to the final competition, and she had a sous chef, one of the other competitors that got to help her, who got in her ear and cost her the competition. Now, at the end of the day, it was her competition to win or lose, but this person advised her on a technique that she would never do, that she took a chance on because the person considered her, convinced her to take the risk, and because of it, she missed it, meaning the win on Top Chef. Now, it all worked out well for her. She went on to have a very successful daytime show, has written many, many, many books, has won awards and Emmys, and you name it. Okay, so sometimes that's another lesson, huh? Sometimes something that goes absolutely wrong can be the best thing in our life. It can be the loss that sets us up for the greatest wins of our life. And I think I've taught that on here too, that we can make beauty from ashes from our strife. But the message that I always took away, and I remember watching her as she went back in her confessionals and reviewed, she thought, why did I not listen to myself? This is not what I would do, meaning the technique. Whatever the cooking technique was, it's not something she would do, but she let when someone get in her head. And I always said to myself, if I ever have that moment, I will not mess it up. But it's so easier said than done, because for 20 seconds, my mouth was on the run and it wasn't going at a gallop or a foxtrot. It was high speed. It was Zorro on a chase. It was Keanu Reeves in a bus, or maybe a ship. That was a bad one, yeah. That's when I knew that in that moment, you have to know who you are. Were Carla to compete again, it would never get that far. She would never allow anybody to influence her because she learned from that moment. The next time I'm at a wedding and the fates are not aligning or the weather is misbehaving, no matter what anyone is saying, I know my assignment. But it was an interesting lesson. And the other thing is, nobody else in the audience could have did what that person did because I loved that person. I allowed her closeness and proximity to me emotionally and energetically, and I took direction from her. Empath, that's the big message and takeaway. The people that we love can easily influence us, and that's why they say be very careful of who's around you. Now, this was not a dangerous situation, it's rather benign, but I think it also works mighty fine for an example of toxic friendships, toxic family members, and people that don't necessarily wish the best for you. They can smile in your face all the time, they want to take your place, backstabbers. Now, that was not the case in this situation.
Mhm.
It was just a quick and little misalignment. But what I want you to understand is that there will be people who look for a chink in your armor and they will find it and they will press in the soft place. So it is up to you not just to save face, but to understand that God has given you grace for your place in a moment. When it is your time to stand at that pulpit, at that lectern, I want you to own it. And it doesn't matter who's waving, if the house is on fire, if they're saying to evacuate, I mean, take precautions. But you were there, not just to be great, but to get the job done in whatever capacity it is, whether you're Carla competing and you're listening to someone who didn't make it as far in the competition as you. That's another message from that seasons prior to where Carla got. So Carla had an expertise level that was beyond her counterpart, her cohort. Yet and still she took advice because she wasn't solidified in who she was in that moment and she did not own it. In that moment when I wavered and I wobbled for a second, God said, "You're getting stronger every day, but we will never stop testing you this way because one day you'll be in front of an executive, or one day you'll be in front of somebody who wants to be an opportunist or give you an opportunity, but there's a catch 22. Your integrity may be impugned and you'll be called into question as to what you will do when the thing is dangled before you that seems so delicious. Will you take it? Will you turn vicious? Who will you be?" They say absolute power corrupts absolutely, but there needs to be a steely resolve that resides intrinsically in you, empath, to get through some of the tests that will come your way. Because sometimes they will come from those higher ups, and sometimes it will be your family. How you respond will matter. It will depend on somebody else's life or your life, but it will matter. And you are tested because your angels and ancestors want to know, do you understand the assignment? But even if you don't understand the assignment, will you falter or will you go along with someone else's will for you? What will you do in your moment, empath? There's a reason that you're listening to this video today because these tests of will and resolve and mettle have already come your way, and maybe more yet to come. And in that moment, reflect back to me at that lectern by the sea with an opportunity to hold steady, to keep the pace, and to not let anybody make me rush my race. Empath, the tortoise and the hare exist for a reason. I happen to have a particular affinity to turtles growing up in the Keys as I did being in Marathon at the hospital that is still there to this day for turtles, specifically taking field trips and studying. I embody turtle energy. We can be insular and protect ourselves. That exoskeleton comes in handy, but we take our time and we do what we have to do because we know that maybe we don't need a plan B. We just need to be steady, rock steady as we go, keeping our pace no matter who's lapping us in the race, like the hare lapped the tortoise. Because at the end of it, it is us at the finish line. We're not winded, we're not exhausted. We got it done. We understood the assignment. And now, empath, I pronounce you forever merge with your soul, integrating divine feminine and masculine energy so that you can make decisions for your well being in split seconds, even when there are tests and tempests raging, when family are maybe misguiding, though well meaning, when friends are making things complicated, when co workers are gossiping and hating, when spouses are not cooperating. What is your truth? Do not lose your stride. Remember that internal voice from your youth. Our inner child always knew what to do, even if it was scared. It was clear, it was loud, and it was directional. That's still in you, empath, no matter what you've been through. Don't let them take you off your stride. Keep your pace and trust your gut. And no one can ever get you in a sideswiped rut. And that's the message this morning. So good to share some energy with you. Come back and join me next time, and we will continue to evolve together.